Hey gang, obviously this is, go away, go away. Yep, obviously this is a video for Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. Just a few reminders, mostly vocabulary, in case you're a little stumped about what the heck is going on. A little bit of a different sort of thing today, asking you a little creative, but this is mainly about independent and dependent variables, and what they kind of are. So it's like when you have two real life variables that are independent, and one's independent and one's dependent. The independent variable is should be your x, basically, and your dependent variable should be your y. Meaning, if you were to graph it, if you were to make a graph showing the relationship of two real life sort of variables, then the independent one would go kind of along the bottom axis, and the dependent one, the more dependent one, would go along the vertical axis, you know what I mean, along the side, right, for your graph. And if you were to make a table, the first column would be your independent, and so it's like x and y, basically. But what you probably really more so need to understand is just, what do these words mean exactly? And it's not exactly a fancy explanation. These words are well picked, right? Because if you think about what independent means in everyday English language, independent means you're free, like you're not under control of anything. You're independent, you're free to be whatever, Dependent, it's kind of also just like it sounds, it's dependent on something else. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like here with this example, right? The one I came up with as an example to kind of help you. This is a pretty good example, The independent variable is the day's average temperature, and the dependent variable is the number of visitors to the beach, right? And getting back to the dependent thing, what if you were to ask, hey, how many people do you think will be at the beach today? And you could totally imagine the person you're talking to say, well, it depends. Depends on what? Depends on how hot it is, today. If it's really hot, there's probably going to be a lot of people at the beach. And if it's not, so if it's kind of cold, then there's not going to be. So, literally, it depends. It's the dependent variable. It depends on something else, And the independent variable is just kind of the one that just kind of happens, or whatever, usually, you know what I mean? And that's kind of it, I mean, if I wanted to kind of keep talking your ear off, I vaguely remember in our notes once upon a time we had some other examples. Like, I can remember the one that says, like, hey, you have like so much sugar to use to bake cookies or something. And so you could kind of have your two variables as like how much sugar you have and how many cookies you're going to bake. You know what I mean? And that one's a little bit tougher to kind of, you could pretty much argue it both ways. Which one is more dependent on the other? Is the amount of sugar dependent on how many cookies you want to bake, or is the number of cookies dependent on how much sugar you're using? You know what I mean? I'm not going to be too strict about this, but this one's excellent. You know what I mean? I don't think you can kind of say that, like, how hot is it going to be today? Well, it depends on how many people are at the beach. Yeah, so this one is clear. It's cut and dry that this is dependent and the temperature is independent. Anyway, I'll shut up now.